RCMP did announce on Friday that cadaver dogs will begin searching for the two children. Is this the first time that they've used cadaver dogs?
I haven't heard about cadaver dogs so far.
The accumulation of evidence, witness statements, and forensic analysis coalesced into one inescapable, grim conclusion. Conventional search methods were simply not going to locate these children. The perpetrators had been too careful, too thorough in their efforts to conceal evidence. Finding Lilly and Jack would now demand a drastic pivot in methodology, specialized resources, and the wrenching acceptance of a new reality. They were no longer searching for living children. In our next segment, we'll explore how the investigation's chilling findings sent ripples through the community and the family, even as investigators quietly prepared for the next, most difficult phase of their search. Because by this point, every soul involved understood that the hope for a happy ending had vanished. Let me know in the comments if you think law enforcement made the right decision in expanding this investigation beyond Nova Scotia, because what they ultimately uncovered about organized criminal networks would shock veteran investigators across Canada. The summer of 2025 brought an eerie, almost suffocating quiet to Landown Station. The massive search operation, the helicopters, the search teams, the media caravans, had dissolved, leaving behind only unanswered questions and a profound sense of failure. For 4 agonizing months, the families, neighbors, and investigators involved in the search for Lilly and Jack Sullivan carried the crushing weight of this unsolved mystery. But this wasn't true silence. It was the deceptive calm that descends when an investigation retreats from public spectacle into the intensive, private realm of detective work. While the community saw reduced activity, investigators were operating more intensely than ever, pursuing sensitive leads that demanded absolute secrecy to protect their integrity and the future case. The Sullivan family's ordeal during these months has been largely private, but court documents and public statements reveal the impossible dilemma they faced. How do you grieve for children who might still be alive? How do you maintain hope when every piece of evidence suggests tragedy? How do you function as a family when your world has been shattered and laid bare by investigators, media, and public speculation? The mother and stepfather, Daniel Martel, have consistently maintained their innocence and cooperation throughout the investigation, but the strain of living under a cloud of suspicion while dealing with the loss of their children has been devastating. They faced not only the trauma of losing Lilly and Jack, but also the secondary trauma of being investigated, questioned, and judged by a community desperate for closure. Community support emerged as both overwhelming and complicated. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers provided emotional and financial aid, but they also subjected the family to intense scrutiny and amateur detective work. Every social media post, every public appearance, and every decision became a subject of intense analysis by people trying to understand what truly happened on May 2nd. The children's biological father also endured months of investigation and public attention. His grief was compounded by legal battles over custody rights that became meaningless when his children disappeared and by the frustration of being unable to participate actively in the search. Extended family members, school personnel, and community members have all lived with the haunting question of whether they missed some crucial sign or could have intervened to prevent this tragedy. The second-guessing and self-blame that follows traumatic events like this have affected dozens of people connected to Lilly and Jack's lives. Yet, the community response also showcased the very best of human nature. Fundraising efforts raised thousands of dollars for search expenses and family support. Volunteers continued independent searches of areas they felt might have been overlooked. Local businesses donated resources, and community organizations provided counseling and spiritual guidance. The reward program launched during the summer offered substantial financial incentives for information leading to the children's discovery or the arrest of those responsible for their disappearance. These rewards, funded by community and business contributions, represented one of the largest missing persons rewards in Nova Scotia history. However, the reward offers also attracted problematic attention. False tips increased dramatically as people sought to claim rewards for information they did not actually possess, forcing investigators to devote resources to evaluating claims that ranged from simple mistaken identity to deliberate fraud. Some community members organized their own search efforts, unwilling to accept that professional teams had thoroughly covered the most likely areas. These volunteer searches, while well-intentioned, sometimes interfered with ongoing investigation activities and occasionally destroyed potential evidence through contamination of crime scenes. The psychological impact on other children in the community has been profound and long-lasting. Schools implemented new security protocols, parents changed their routines dramatically, and children who had previously enjoyed the freedom of rural life found themselves under constant supervision and restricted in ways that fundamentally changed their childhood experience. Local law enforcement agencies faced unprecedented scrutiny during these months, with community members questioning every decision, resource allocation, and strategic choice made during the investigation. The pressure to provide updates and show progress created a constant tension between the need for transparency and the requirements of an ongoing criminal investigation. Media coverage evolved during this period from breaking news reporting to in-depth investigative journalism and true crime analysis. Documentary filmmakers, podcast producers, and online investigators began examining every aspect of the case, sometimes helping to keep public attention focused, but also occasionally spreading misinformation and conspiracy theories. The case attracted attention from missing children advocates, criminal justice reform activists, and child safety organizations across Canada, sparking policy discussions about rural child safety, stranger danger education, and law enforcement resources for missing persons cases in remote areas. But perhaps most significantly, these 4 months of apparent quiet allowed investigators to build the comprehensive case that would justify the next phase of their search. Every interview, every piece of forensic evidence, every digital analysis, and every jurisdictional coordination effort was building toward the moment when they would deploy resources specifically designed to locate physical human remains. The decision to bring in specialized detection dogs wasn't made hastily or without substantial justification. Investigators had spent months accumulating evidence that pointed to one chilling conclusion. Lilly and Jack Sullivan were no longer alive, and their bodies were concealed somewhere in the wilderness surrounding their home. This conclusion wasn't based on speculation or pessimism. It was based on the systematic elimination of every other possibility through thorough investigation. The children hadn't wandered away and become lost. They hadn't been taken by family members. They hadn't run away voluntarily. They had been taken by organized criminals who had caused their passing and concealed their remains. The community's reaction to news that specialized detection dogs would be deployed was mixed. Some residents expressed relief that the search was resuming with new, targeted methods. Others were devastated by the implication that hope for finding living children was being abandoned. Many struggled with the reality that their worst fears about what had happened were being confirmed by law enforcement actions. For the Sullivan family, the deployment of specialized detection dogs represented both progress and finality. Progress because investigators were still working to find their children. Finality because the hope that Lilly and Jack might somehow still be alive was being officially abandoned. The timing of this decision, 4 months after the disappearance, reflects both the thoroughness of the investigation and the difficult reality of missing persons cases involving sophisticated criminals. Investigators needed time to eliminate other possibilities, gather evidence, and build the justification for deploying these specialized resources. But 4 months also represents the outer limit of how long human remains can go undetected in wilderness environments during warm weather months. If Lilly and Jack's bodies were going to be found through scent detection, the window for success was narrowing as the natural process of decomposition progressed and environmental factors dispersed evidence. The silence of these 4 months was therefore not empty. It was full of preparation, investigation, and the building of cases that might finally provide answers to what happened to 2 innocent children on a spring morning in rural Nova Scotia. In our next segment, we'll examine what the decision to deploy specialized detection dogs truly means and what investigators hope to accomplish with this highly specialized search technique. Because this decision represents more than just a new search method. It represents acceptance of a reality that no one wanted to face. Share this investigation with someone who follows true crime cases and let me know in the comments how you think the community should balance hope with the devastating reality that investigators have revealed through their actions. The announcement that specialized detection dogs would be deployed in the search for Lilly and Jack Sullivan wasn't just another search technique. It was law enforcement's official acknowledgement that they were no longer looking for living children. This decision, made in early fall 2025, represented the culmination of months of evidence gathering that had led to one inescapable conclusion. Former major crimes investigator insights reveal the significance of this timing. As one expert noted, specialized detection dogs are deployed because they are most effective when they're looking for signs of decomposition. This isn't a tool you use when children might be hiding or lost. This is a tool you use when you believe children are deceased and their bodies are concealed. The decision to wait 4 months before deploying these specialized resources wasn't hesitation, it was strategic. Investigators needed to eliminate every other possibility through conventional methods before committing to a search for human remains. They needed to build sufficient evidence to justify the resources required for these specialized dog operations, which are expensive, time-intensive, and emotionally devastating for families. But the timing also reflects something else: the reality of decomposition in Nova Scotia's environment. Bodies concealed in the wilderness undergo predictable changes over time, and specialized detection dogs are most effective during specific stages of this process. Too early, and the scent compounds that dogs detect haven't fully developed. Too late, and environmental factors may have dispersed or degraded these compounds beyond detection. The capabilities of these specialized detection teams are both impressive and disturbing. These dogs can locate signs of passing human remains buried several feet underground, concealed in water, or even degraded beyond visual recognition. They can detect scent compounds that are completely undetectable to humans, following scent trails that may be months old. In forest environments like the wilderness surrounding the Sullivan property, specialized detection dogs represent the best hope of locating evidence that has been deliberately concealed. The dense undergrowth, natural depressions, and complex terrain that defeated conventional search methods don't present the same obstacles to dogs trained to follow chemical scent trails. But even these sophisticated detection capabilities have limitations that investigators had to consider. Environmental factors like temperature, humidity, wind patterns, and seasonal changes affect how scent compounds disperse through wilderness areas. Heavy rains can wash scent away from surface areas, but may also concentrate it in depressions and waterways. The specific terrain around the Sullivan property presents both advantages and challenges for these specialized dog searches. The dense forest canopy provides protection from weather that might disperse scents, but it also creates complex air current patterns that can carry scent compounds in unpredictable directions. Seasonal timing became crucial. Fall weather in Nova Scotia provides optimal conditions for scent detection. Cooler temperatures slow the decomposition process while reducing the thermal currents that can disperse scent compounds. The lower humidity and reduced vegetation growth of autumn also make it easier for dogs to work through dense forest areas. The decision revealed something else significant about the investigation. Investigators had developed specific theories about where Lilly and Jack's bodies might be located. Specialized detection dog searches aren't random. They're targeted based on evidence, witness statements, geographic profiling, and behavioral analysis of the perpetrators. The fact that these searches would continue until every angle has been explored indicates that investigators have identified multiple potential locations based on their 4-month investigation. This isn't a desperate last resort. It's a systematic search of areas that evidence suggests are most likely to yield results. What investigators haven't shared publicly is equally important. The decision to deploy these specialized detection dogs suggests they have eliminated the possibility that the children were taken far from the area where they disappeared. If investigators believed Lilly and Jack had been transported to other provinces or concealed in urban environments, these dogs wouldn't be the appropriate resource. This means that 4 months of investigation have convinced law enforcement that these children are interred somewhere in the wilderness of Nova Scotia, probably within a reasonable distance of their home. The perpetrators may have been sophisticated in planning and executing their crime, but they didn't transport the bodies far from the scene. The psychological impact of this decision on the investigation team cannot be understated. For investigators who had spent months hoping they might find living children, the deployment of specialized detection dogs represents a professional acceptance of the failure to rescue and a profound shift to seeking justice instead. For the community, this decision confirmed their worst fears while also providing hope that answers might finally be found. The ambiguity of not knowing what happened to Lilly and Jack has been almost as traumatic as knowing they were gone. Finding their remains would provide the closure needed for grief and healing. The specialized teams deployed include not just dogs and handlers, but also forensic anthropologists, crime scene technicians, and evidence recovery specialists. This isn't just about locating remains, it's about preserving evidence that might identify the perpetrators and build cases for prosecution. The search methodology involves systematic coverage of priority areas identified through investigation. Dogs work in grid patterns, covering terrain methodically to ensure that potential evidence isn't missed. Handler teams rotate to prevent fatigue and maintain peak detection capabilities, but success isn't guaranteed even with these sophisticated resources. If the perpetrators took extraordinary measures to conceal evidence, such as burial in concrete containers, use of lime or other chemicals to accelerate decomposition, or removal of bodies to extremely remote locations, even the specialized detection dogs might not find them. The forensic analysis capabilities that support these specialized dog searches have advanced dramatically in recent years. DNA analysis can identify remains from extremely degraded samples. Forensic anthropology can determine cause of passing, even from skeletal remains. Trace evidence analysis can connect physical evidence to perpetrators years after crimes were committed. This means that finding Lilly and Jack's remains, even after months of concealment, could still provide the evidence needed to identify, arrest, and convict those responsible for their deaths. The investigation wouldn't end with recovery of the bodies, it would shift to building cases for prosecution. The decision to deploy specialized detection dogs also sends a clear message to the perpetrators. Law enforcement hasn't given up, and they won't give up until these children are found and justice is served. Even sophisticated criminals who believe they've successfully concealed their crimes may find that advances in forensic science can reach across time to hold them accountable. For investigators who have worked on this case for 4 months, the deployment of specialized detection dogs represents both hope and heartbreak. Hope that they might finally provide answers to a family that has been living in limbo, and heartbreak that those answers will confirm the loss of 2 innocent children who deserved so much more life than they received. In our final segments, we'll examine what current evidence suggests about what really happened to Lilly and Jack Sullivan and what their case reveals about the challenges of protecting children in rural communities, because this investigation has implications that extend far beyond one tragic disappearance. Comment below if you think the decision to deploy specialized detection dogs was made at the right time, or if investigators should have utilized these resources earlier in the search, because timing decisions like this can mean the difference between finding crucial evidence and losing it forever. 4 months of intensive investigation have provided law enforcement with a comprehensive understanding of what happened to Lilly and Jack Sullivan. Even though their bodies remain concealed, the accumulated evidence paints a picture that is both clear in its implications and terrifying in its details. The timeline has been reconstructed with precision that would satisfy a forensic accountant. Investigators know that Lilly and Jack were alive and healthy on the afternoon of May 1, 2025. Surveillance footage and witness statements confirmed their presence with family members during normal activities. They went to bed that evening in their own home, in their own beds, protected by parents who loved them. Sometime between the late evening of May 1st and the early morning of May 2nd, these children encountered their assailants. The absence of any evidence that they left the property voluntarily, combined with the complete lack of traces in the surrounding wilderness, indicates that they never walked into those woods alive. The sophistication of the crime has become chillingly clear through investigation. This wasn't a crime of opportunity committed by impulsive individuals. This was a planned abduction carried out by organized criminals who had conducted surveillance, identified vulnerabilities, and executed their plan with a precision that reflects significant experience. The reconnaissance activities documented through witness interviews show that someone had been studying potential targets throughout Pictou County for weeks or possibly months before selecting the Sullivan family. The isolated location of their property, the young ages of the children, and the family's routines made them ideal victims from the perspective of predators seeking vulnerable targets. The complete absence of digital evidence regarding the crime reflects sophisticated knowledge of modern investigative techniques. The perpetrators understood how law enforcement uses electronic surveillance, communication intercepts, and digital forensics in missing persons cases. They took deliberate steps to avoid leaving digital footprints that could be traced back to them. The physical evidence discovered during searches, while not disclosed in detail publicly, has provided investigators with crucial information about the perpetrator's methodology. Forensic analysis has revealed trace evidence that doesn't match the rural Nova Scotia environment, suggesting that the children were taken to locations with industrial or commercial characteristics. The DNA analysis of evidence found on and near the property has likely provided investigators with genetic profiles of unknown individuals who were present during the time period when Lilly and Jack disappeared. This evidence will be crucial for prosecution when suspects are eventually identified and apprehended. The behavioral analysis conducted by criminal profilers has created detailed psychological profiles of the perpetrators. These individuals are likely middle-aged males with significant experience in child abduction. They have access to vehicles suitable for transporting victims and to property where evidence can be concealed. Most disturbing, they have probably committed similar crimes before and will continue until stopped. The multi-jurisdictional investigation has revealed connections to other missing children cases across Canada. The methodology, victim selection criteria, and evidence patterns in the Sullivan case match those found in at least 3 other disappearances across the Maritime provinces and beyond. This suggests a network of organized predators operating across provincial boundaries. The forensic timeline indicates that Lilly and Jack were subjected to an incident that caused their passing within hours of their abduction. The evidence patterns don't support scenarios where the children were held captive for extended periods or transported long distances while still alive. Whatever happened to them occurred quickly, probably on the same day they disappeared. The geographic analysis conducted by investigators has identified the most likely disposal sites for the children's remains. These locations are based on perpetrator behavior patterns, evidence found during searches, and the practical considerations of criminals who need to conceal evidence quickly while minimizing their own exposure to detection. The cell phone data analysis has provided investigators with information about unidentified devices that were present in the area during the critical time period. While these devices couldn't be traced to specific individuals, their movement patterns provide insights into how the perpetrators approached and left the Sullivan property. The witness statement analysis has revealed a pattern of suspicious activity in the area that extends back several weeks before the disappearance. Multiple residents reported encounters with strangers asking inappropriate questions about local families and their children. These reports, combined with physical descriptions, have helped investigators develop suspect profiles. The forensic accounting investigation has found no evidence of ransom demands, financial motivations, or monetary transactions related to the disappearance. This confirms that Lilly and Jack were taken for reasons related to the children themselves rather than for financial gain from their family. The psychological evaluation of the crime scene and evidence patterns indicates that the perpetrators derived satisfaction from the planning and execution of this crime. The level of preparation involved, the selection of young victims, and the methods used to conceal evidence suggest individuals who commit these crimes for personal gratification rather than practical purposes. The investigation into similar crimes has revealed that perpetrators of child abductions often escalate their activities over time. The sophistication demonstrated in the Sullivan case suggests that whoever is responsible has been committing these crimes for years and has refined their methods through experience. The evidence analysis indicates that the perpetrators had detailed knowledge of law enforcement response procedures for missing children cases. They understood how long it would take for searches to be organized, what methods would be used initially, and how to avoid detection during the critical first hours when evidence is most vulnerable. The forensic analysis of the crime scene has revealed that the perpetrators spent significant time on the Sullivan property. They didn't simply grab the children and leave. They took time to ensure that no evidence of their presence would be easily discovered. This indicates confidence, experience, and detailed planning. The investigation has eliminated all family members and close associates as suspects through polygraph examinations, alibi verification, and behavioral analysis. The perpetrators were outsiders who targeted this family specifically after conducting surveillance and identifying them as ideal victims. What investigators know but cannot yet prove is the identity of these perpetrators. The evidence clearly indicates who they are looking for: organized criminals with extensive experience in child abduction, access to resources for concealing evidence, and knowledge of law enforcement procedures. Finding them will require continued investigation, forensic analysis, and probably cooperation from other jurisdictions where similar crimes have occurred. The deployment of specialized detection dogs represents the next phase of gathering evidence that can be used for prosecution. Finding Lilly and Jack's remains will provide additional forensic evidence, confirm the methods used by their assailants, and potentially reveal evidence that identifies the perpetrators. In our final segment, we'll explore what this case reveals about protecting children in rural communities and what still needs to happen to bring justice for Lilly and Jack Sullivan, because understanding what happened to these children is only the first step toward preventing similar tragedies. Let me know in the comments whether you think investigators have enough evidence to eventually solve this case, even without finding the children's remains, because what they know is extensive, even if what they can prove in court is still being developed. As specialized detection dogs begin their systematic search of the Nova Scotia wilderness, the case of Lilly and Jack Sullivan represents far more than one tragic disappearance. It has become a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities that exist in rural communities and the sophisticated nature of modern predatory criminals. The Sullivan case has revealed gaps in child protection that most parents never consider. Rural isolation, which provides families with peace, privacy, and connection to nature, also creates opportunities for criminals who understand how to exploit geographic vulnerabilities. Children who live in remote areas face risks that their urban counterparts never encounter. The reconnaissance activities documented in this case show that predators are actively surveying rural communities, identifying potential victims, and planning crimes with near-military precision. They understand that rural families often have limited security measures, that emergency response times are longer, and that witnesses are fewer in these environments. The multi-jurisdictional nature of these crimes presents challenges for law enforcement agencies that are often understaffed and under-resourced for investigations of this complexity. Small-town police departments and even provincial forces may lack the specialized resources needed to investigate sophisticated child abduction networks. The technology gap between criminal capabilities and law enforcement resources has become apparent through this investigation. While investigators have access to advanced forensic techniques, the criminals who took Lilly and Jack demonstrated knowledge of these same techniques and took deliberate steps to avoid detection. The psychological impact on rural communities has been profound and lasting. Parents who once felt safe letting their children explore nearby forests and play unsupervised have fundamentally changed their parenting approaches. The freedom that defined rural childhood for generations has been compromised by the reality that predators now target these communities specifically because of their perceived vulnerabilities. The economic impact extends beyond the direct costs of the investigation. Tourism in the area has declined as the case has received national attention. Property values have been affected as potential buyers considered the safety implications of living in isolated areas. Local businesses have invested in security measures that were previously unnecessary. The media attention has created both opportunities and challenges for the investigation. While public awareness has generated tips and maintained pressure for continued investigation, it has also attracted amateur investigators, conspiracy theorists, and attention seekers who have sometimes interfered with professional law enforcement efforts. The case has highlighted the importance of community awareness and education about predatory behavior. The witnesses who reported suspicious individuals asking inappropriate questions about local families provided crucial evidence, but these reports came only after children had already been taken. Earlier recognition of these warning signs might have prevented this tragedy. The investigation has revealed the need for better coordination between law enforcement agencies across provincial boundaries. The evidence suggests that the criminals responsible for taking Lilly and Jack have operated in multiple provinces, but information sharing between agencies has been complicated by jurisdictional boundaries and different investigative procedures. The forensic advances demonstrated in this case provide hope for solving similar crimes in the future. DNA analysis, digital forensics, and behavioral profiling have reached levels of sophistication that make it increasingly difficult for criminals to avoid detection indefinitely. Even crimes committed years ago can now be solved through advances in forensic science. But the most important lesson from this case may be the simplest. Evil exists, and it actively seeks out vulnerable victims. The criminals who took Lilly and Jack Sullivan didn't stumble upon them by accident. They conducted systematic surveillance, identified vulnerabilities, and planned their crime with meticulous attention to detail. The ongoing search for these children's remains represents more than just an attempt to provide closure for their family. It represents society's commitment to justice, to accountability, and to the principle that innocent children deserve protection and that those who harm them will be held responsible. The specialized detection dog searches may provide the final pieces of evidence needed to identify and prosecute the perpetrators. Every piece of physical evidence recovered could contain DNA, trace evidence, or other forensic clues that connect these crimes to specific individuals. The investigation continues to evolve as new technologies become available and as connections to other cases are discovered. The network of criminals responsible for these disappearances may be larger and more organized than initially understood, requiring resources and coordination at the federal level. The Sullivan family continues to live with uncertainty and grief that most people cannot imagine. They have maintained their cooperation with investigators while dealing with public scrutiny and the devastating reality that their children are gone. Their strength and dignity in the face of unimaginable loss has been remarkable. The community of Landone Station and surrounding areas continues to support the family while grappling with the reality that their peaceful rural environment has been forever changed by this crime. The trust and security that once defined life in this area have been replaced by vigilance and fear. The broader implications of this case extend to child protection policies, law enforcement resources, and community safety measures across Canada. Rural families deserve the same level of protection from predatory criminals that urban families receive. But achieving that protection requires recognition of the unique vulnerabilities that rural isolation creates. The investigation has also highlighted the importance of immediate response to missing children cases. The first few hours after a child disappears are crucial for gathering evidence and following leads before they disappear or degrade. Rural communities may need specialized protocols that account for longer response times and different environmental factors. The psychological profiles developed during this investigation will be invaluable for identifying and preventing similar crimes in the future. Understanding how these criminals select targets, plan their crimes, and attempt to conceal evidence provides law enforcement with tools for recognizing patterns and intervening before other children are victimized. The technology used in this investigation, from cell phone data analysis to forensic DNA techniques, represents the cutting edge of criminal investigation capabilities, but it also reveals how sophisticated modern criminals have become in their efforts to avoid detection. As the search for Lilly and Jack Sullivan continues, their case serves as a powerful reminder that missing children investigations never truly end. Even years later, new evidence can emerge, new technologies can be applied, and new witnesses can come forward with information that breaks cases wide open. The reward offers remain firmly in place, and investigators continue to encourage anyone with information to step forward. The smallest detail, the most seemingly insignificant observation, could be the key that finally provides answers about what happened to these innocent children. The commitment to finding Lilly and Jack Sullivan and bringing their assailants to justice represents the best of human nature responding to the worst. It demonstrates that society will not simply forget about vulnerable victims and that those who prey upon children will eventually be held accountable for their crimes. For other families living in rural communities, the Sullivan case provides both a stark warning and a needed hope. A warning about the realities of predatory behavior and the need for vigilance and security measures previously thought unnecessary, and a hope that law enforcement has the tools and determination to solve even the most complex and challenging crimes. The investigation continues to generate new leads and new evidence. The deployment of specialized detection dogs may finally provide the breakthrough that investigators have been working toward for 4 months. But regardless of what these searches reveal, the commitment to justice for Lilly and Jack Sullivan will not waver. Their story has touched people across Canada and beyond. Social media has kept their names and faces visible to millions of people who continue to hope that, somewhere, somehow, evidence will emerge that leads to answers and accountability. The case has also inspired changes in how missing children cases are handled in rural areas. New protocols for immediate response, better coordination between agencies, and improved public education about predatory behavior have all emerged as direct results of lessons learned from this investigation. As we conclude this intensive look into the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan, we must remember that their story is not yet finished. Somewhere in the vast wilderness of Nova Scotia, 2 children are waiting to be found. Somewhere, the criminals who took them believe they have evaded justice. And somewhere, investigators continue working relentlessly to prove them wrong. The search for truth, justice, and accountability endures. Every day that passes brings new possibilities for breakthrough evidence. Every advancement in forensic science brings new hope for solving cases like this one. Every person who shares this story brings new eyes to evidence that might reveal crucial details. Thank you for following Lilly and Jack Sullivan's story to the end. If this case moved you, hit like and subscribe. We have more stories that deserve to be heard. Share your thoughts, your feelings, and your final theory in the comments below. Let me know where you're watching from, because this case has reached people around the world who believe these children deserve justice. Most importantly, if you have any information about this case, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, please contact the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Your tip could be the one that finally brings Lilly and Jack home and ensures that those responsible for their deaths face the justice they deserve. These children mattered. Their lives had value. Their passing demands accountability. And their memory deserves better than an unsolved mystery. The search continues, and it will continue until answers are found and justice is served. Rural communities may need specialized protocols that account for longer response times and different environmental factors. The psychological profiles developed during this investigation will be invaluable for identifying and preventing similar crimes in the future. Understanding how these criminals select targets, plan their crimes, and attempt to conceal evidence provides law enforcement with tools for recognizing patterns and intervening before other children are victimized. The technology used in this investigation, from cell phone data analysis to forensic DNA techniques, represents the cutting edge of criminal investigation capabilities. But it also reveals how sophisticated modern criminals have become in their efforts to avoid detection. As the search for Lilly and Jack Sullivan continues, their case serves as a powerful reminder that missing children investigations never truly end. Even years later, new evidence can emerge, new technologies can be applied, and new witnesses can come forward with information that breaks cases wide open. The reward offers remain firmly in place, and investigators continue to encourage anyone with information to step forward. The smallest detail, the most seemingly insignificant observation, could be the key that finally provides answers about what happened to these innocent children. The commitment to finding Lilly and Jack Sullivan and bringing their assailants to justice represents the best of human nature responding to the worst. It demonstrates that society will not simply forget about vulnerable victims and that those who prey upon children will eventually be held accountable for their crimes. For other families living in rural communities, the Sullivan case provides both a stark warning and a needed hope. A warning about the realities of predatory behavior and the need for vigilance and security measures previously thought unnecessary, and a hope that law enforcement has the tools and determination to solve even the most complex and challenging crimes. The investigation continues to generate new leads and new evidence. The deployment of specialized detection dogs may finally provide the breakthrough that investigators have been working toward for 4 months. But regardless of what these searches reveal, the commitment to justice for Lilly and Jack Sullivan will not waver. Their story has touched people across Canada and beyond. Social media has kept their names and faces visible to millions of people who continue to hope that, somewhere, somehow, evidence will emerge that leads to answers and accountability. The case has also inspired changes in how missing children cases are handled in rural areas. New protocols for immediate response, better coordination between agencies, and improved public education about predatory behavior have all emerged as direct results of lessons learned from this investigation. As we conclude this intensive look into the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan, we must remember that their story is not yet finished. Somewhere in the vast wilderness of Nova Scotia, 2 children are waiting to be found. Somewhere, the criminals who took them believe they have evaded justice. And somewhere, investigators continue working relentlessly to prove them wrong. The search for truth, justice, and accountability endures. Every day that passes brings new possibilities for breakthrough evidence. Every advancement in forensic science brings new hope for solving cases like this one. Every person who shares this story brings new eyes to evidence that might reveal crucial details. Thank you for following Lilly and Jack Sullivan's story to the end. If this case moved you, hit like and subscribe. We have more stories that deserve to be heard. Share your thoughts, your feelings, and your final theory in the comments below. Let me know where you're watching from, because this case has reached people around the world who believe these children deserve justice. Most importantly, if you have any information about this case, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, please contact the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Your tip could be the one that finally brings Lilly and Jack home and ensures that those responsible for their deaths face the justice they deserve. These children mattered. Their lives had value. Their passing demands accountability, and their memory deserves better than an unsolved mystery. The search continues, and it will continue until answers are found and justice is served. As you reflect on the chilling sophistication of these criminals and the heartbreaking vulnerability of the Sullivan family, what single feeling weighs heaviest on your mind right now? Has the revealed connection to a wider network of predators changed your perspective on safety in rural areas? And if so, what is the one tangible action you feel the community or law enforcement should prioritize right now to protect the next family?